And now it's time to create our risk plan. I will show you in step-by-step process how we can create our risk plan together. Now, developer just talked about risks that they think they may encounter in the project. We're going to use information from this discussion to generate a risk plan for the product. And here is some information about what we should include in our risk plan, as well as what should we do for each risks. So our risk plan should include the risks discussed by the developers, at least a couple more additional risks that were not discussed by developers, but that you think you should also be risked for this project. Now, for each risk, we need to rate what we think the severity of the risk is based on likelihood and impact. And this should be a single score that takes into account both likelihood and impact based upon a likelihood impact risk matrix. And we should also create a contingency plan of our few steps that should be followed if the risk occur. Now let's create our risk plan in Google document, and you will have this exact risk plan in the resource section. And this is our template in Google document, risk plan in risk matrix. And this is table for risks, and this is table for contingency plan. So let's start by identifying the risks that were discussed. Technology risk, voice recognition, risky to implement. Technology risk, remote connection with users, risky to implement. Compatibility risk, issues with different operating systems. Task switching risk, unplanned work that must be accommodated, or changing ideas too often from Lisa. Lisa is our stakeholder. Getting sick. Database issues after updating to a new structure. And we will add some additional risks that were not discussed, but very common. Stakeholder engagement. Developers don't have all the tools and infrastructure needed to complete the current sprint. Developers don't have the experience in the technology needed to implement a certain feature. The Scrum team has not defined a definition of done. This Scrum team is not self-managing. The Scrum team has not developed a product goal. Estimating and/or scheduling errors. The project scope is not clearly defined or understood. The next thing what we need here is to put all these risk IDs in the risk matrix. So let's go from the first one. So the first risk is technology risk, voice recognition, risky to implement. I will put this risk in here. The next one is also technology risk. I will put this risk here. The third one is compatibility risk, different operating system. I will put this risk here in medium. Task switching or changing ideas too often from Lisa. I will put this risk here, high. Getting sick is also high risk. Database issues after updating it to a new structure. I will put this risk here. Number 7, stakeholder engagement is also very big risk. Developers don't have all the tools. I will put this here, a risk here. Don't have the experience in technology. The Scrum team has not defined the definition of done. I will put this risk here. This Scrum team is not self-managing. It's a medium. And the Scrum team has not defined a product goal. I will put this here in medium. Estimating and scheduling errors, I will put this risk here. And last one is the project scope is not clearly defined or understood. Well, I will put this risk here. Okay, now the next thing what we need to do is to fill contingency plan for each of those risks. So for the technology risk, voice recognition risk, risky to implement, what would be the contingency plan? Create a minimum viable product so that we can evaluate the value of these features before implementing them. If the MVP tests shows us that this feature is not important or that users are not using it, we will remove it from our backlog. Since those are very similar risks, we will use the same contingency plan for this second risk. The risk number 3, compatibility risk issues with different operating systems. So what would be the contingency plan for this? Add software compatibility testing as non-functional testing into definition of done to ensure customer satisfaction. For the risk number 5, task switching or changing ideas too often from Lisa, what would be contingency plan? Some straightforward solution can reduce distraction and the resulting injuries in any work environment. Do not add a new requirement in a current sprint so that developers can focus on one thing at a time. For the risk number 5, getting sick, what would be contingency plan? Losing a team member can affect both the duration of the work and the quality of the work if that person brought expertise that cannot be replaced with the remaining members. The key characteristics of developers is that they are cross-functional and that have all the skills as the team necessary to create a product increment. The risk can be avoided by increasing the team size to double up on key skills or not taking on work that is too risky. It can be reduced by implementing knowledge sharing, and shorter sprints may also reduce the chance for unexpected events to occur in the time box. Risk number 6. Database issues after updating to a new structure. So what could be a contingency plan for this risk. Deep dive into the current status of the database to check if that it's been fixed so that developers can work with it easily. Okay, now let's continue with the risk number 7, stakeholder engagement. Positive personal relationships are the foundation of the effective communication. Teach the stakeholders of importance to attend the sprint planning and the sprint review meetings. Okay, let's continue with the risk number 8. Developers don't have all the tools and infrastructure needed to complete the current sprint. So what would be contingency plan for that? Scrum Master must be aware of this so that he or she must immediately remove all impediments. Risk number 9. Developers don't have the experience in technology needed to implement a certain feature. We need to create a contingency plan for this. Scrum Master must be aware of this so that he or she must immediately remove all impediments. Risk number 10. The Scrum team has not defined definition of done. Having an explicit definition of done limits the risk of misunderstanding and conflicts between developers, customers, and product owner. So the team should conduct it right away. The risk number 11. The Scrum team is not self-managing. And contingency plan for this. Self-organizing teams are not put together randomly. This is the Scrum Master's responsibility to make sure that the team is self-organizing. Risk number 12. The Scrum team has not developed a product goal. The best way to achieve this is by formulating a small product goal. By keeping it small, you reduce risk, uncertainty, and increase confidence your big product goal is valuable. Achieving the small outcomes first gives you feedback on whether doing the rest still makes sense. Risk number 13. Estimating on scheduling errors. Use story points instead of hours or days and use feedback as much as possible. And finally, the scope is not clearly defined or understood. So 5 ways to prevent scope risk. You can do it with interviews, brainstorming, checklists, assumption analysis, work breakdown structure, and so on. Okay, we are done. Let's double check our risk plan. Let's see if we did a good job here. Did we include the risk in the risk plan that were discussed in previous session? Yes, we include these risks. So from risk 1 to risk 6. Did we provide a risk rating based on likelihood and impact for the risk in the risk plan? Yes, we did. Did we provide reasonable contingency plan for the risk in the risk plan? Yes, we provided a contingency plan. Did we provide a couple more additional risks that were not mentioned in the risk discussion? Yes, from 7 to 14. And also we created contingency plan for those risks. So excellent, we created our first risk plan. Congratulations!